Good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen, boys, and girls. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Big Akra Ahmed, and welcome to today's video. Today, we're going to be talking about atheists versus agnostics, and we're going to go ahead and look at the key fundamentals between the two, and go ahead and talk about that and give our input on it. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into this.
Some of us believe in gods, some in reincarnation, and some are unsure, or believe it's the end of the road once we find ourselves 6 feet under. No one really knows for sure, but the quest to understand the truth and whether there is life after death has been a goal of humanity far before the first history books were written. How are some of our belief and non-belief systems alike? That's what we'll be attempting to find out in today's episode of the Infographic Show, Atheist versus Agnostic. How do they compare, and what's the difference? Atheism is, in a broad sense, the unbelief in God, or the belief that there is no God. Many atheists argue that it's a label that shouldn't really exist at all, as we don't create names for other non-belief systems. For example, there's no word to describe someone who doesn't believe in astrology. If there were, we would probably call them non-astrologers.
See, the difference here is your belief system is there is no God. And it's not that you believe there's no God. It's that you believe there's no God. So naturally, the human being believes there's a God, there's a creator, there's a higher purpose. They ask themselves their whole life. They feel depressed. They feel anxious. They feel all of these things going, what's my purpose? Trying to find this purpose, this larger purpose in life. When you look at animals, when you look at a cat, when you look at a dog, when you look at a monkey, when you look at anything else on this planet, we're not sitting there questioning, what's my purpose? What is my greater purpose in life than to eat and sleep and poop? No, they're not asking this question to themselves. They're instinctively just living and breathing and just letting nature take its purpose and cause. But when you live, you don't just live instinctually. You live intelligently. You have a free will aspect to you. And you understand this. You feel this. When you look at your hands, when you look at your body, it's like I'm inside of this body. You don't feel like you are your body. You feel like I'm inside this body. I control this body, more or less. Like, just look down at your hands. So this is a belief system that there's no God. This isn't a non-belief system. This isn't like not believing in astrology or not believing in, unicorns. No, I don't have to call you an un-Unitarian. Like, that just doesn't even make sense. So just from the natural instinct of human nature, we already believe there's a creator. If you go ahead and take an atheist, right, or an agnostic, and they're in the middle of the ocean and they're about to drown and they're in the middle of the water, they're going to pray. Like, they're going to look for a higher power to go ahead and help them. That is a natural instinct within them that they really just try and throw away. And the reason they can throw that away is because, unlike the animal, they have intelligence. They have a free will aspect to them where we can go ahead and throw away our instincts. For instance, in the month of Ramadan for Muslims, we go ahead and fast for 30 days. It's our instinct to eat. It's our instinct to drink. It's our instinct to do specific things, but we go ahead and we stay away from those instincts. We control them, right? An animal's not going to do that. You tell an animal to fast, an animal's not going to fast. An animal's going to eat. It's going to eat everything you put in front of its face. That's because it only knows how to react off its instinct. Where we as human beings have an intellect that can over-trump our instinct, where we can control our instincts. We don't just react like animals. So this is the biggest difference, and this is why atheism isn't a non-belief system. It is a belief system. It's the belief in not believing in God. And you are fighting an instinctual, a natural cause that is built within every single one of us.
But in recent years, the atheist movement has become a lot larger, with many outspoken famous atheists, such as scientist and author Richard Dawkins or comedian Ricky Gervais. The two main divisions within atheism are often called Gnostic atheism and agnostic theism. Those in the first group state that they definitely know there is no God and can prove it. The second group are people who say that they can't prove it with certainty, but there's most likely no God. In his book, The God Delusion, Richard Dawkins suggests a spectrum of 7 levels of beliefs, from those who believe in God to those who do not. The 7 categories that Dawkins popularized are: 1. Strong theist, which is someone with 100% probability of God being real. In the words of C.G. Jung, I do not believe, I know. 2. De facto theist, a very high probability but short of 100%. I don't know for certain, but I strongly believe in God and live my life on the assumption that He...
Just to let you know, I'm at the top. I'm all the way up. I believe there's God, final final straw. One almighty creator created everything. Everything is way too perfect. Everything is way too in place. Everything has such a purpose and works within itself. It is so intelligently designed. When I look at my phone and it has usability and it has applications and I go, someone designed this to have this specific function. It's a tool. My body's a tool. Everything around me is a tool. It has a function. It has design. How is there function and design without intelligence or a creator for that design? How is there intelligence or data in my DNA without someone programming that data in my DNA? I mean, we have brains, right? We're able to go ahead and think about these things from an academic level and go ahead and reason with these things. How is there no creator, but everything looks created? How is there no intelligent, factor that created these things, but there's intelligence in my DNA? There is information that was placed in my DNA to be passed down from generation to generation. This makes no absolute sense to say there's no intelligent creator, but there's information in everything. Everything is passed down in genetics and DNA and RNA and in cells and in atoms, the way they come together, the way bacteria work, the way viruses work, it's insanity. There's world inside of world inside of worlds. To say that all of these things don't play a factor in on each other and that these things are not designed by something intelligent when they show intelligence is crazy to me.
Is there. 3. Leaning towards theism. So higher than 50%, but not very high. I'm very uncertain, but I'm inclined to believe in God. 4. Completely impartial. Spot on 50%. God's existence and non-existence could be both possible. 5. Leaning towards atheism, which is lower than 50%, but not very much lower. I do not know whether God exists, but I'm inclined to be skeptical. 6. De facto atheist. A very low probability, but short of zero. I do not know for certain, but I think God is very improbable, and I live my life on the assumption that He's not there. 7. Strong atheist, which is a person who would state, I know there is no God, with the same conviction as Jung knows there is one. It's commonly believed that an atheist would not waver from their belief and hold an extremist view, but actually many atheists do encourage open dialogue and debate between different viewpoints. So what about someone who is agnostic? The word agnostic is derived from the Greek word gnosis, which means to know, and the A, which is used to state the opposite. So literally translated, the word means not knowing. Thomas Henry Huxley, an English biologist who lived in the 1800s, first introduced the word in 1876 during a meeting of Britain's.
It's funny, it's called to know, but you can never know or prove if there's a God, right? Through your own, through your own just viewing of the world. It's more probable that there is a creator than there's not. So to claim that there's no God is kind of really crazy, right? To claim that there's no unicorn when you've never seen or haven't seen a unicorn is kind of crazy, right?
Metaphysical Society. Huxley's definition was as follows. Agnosticism is the essence of science. Whether ancient or modern, it simply means a man shall not say he knows or believes that which he has no scientific grounds for professing to know or believe. The word agnostic describes a person who neither believes nor disbelieves in the existence of God. They follow the belief that one can never know the world beyond sense and experience. In other words, the real world that we live in day to day. People who are agnostic are often criticized for not being willing to make a choice one way or the other. But this may be more misunderstood criticism, as really many agnostics take a firm stand on the view that we do not yet have sufficient knowledge and understanding beyond the physical realm, and therefore cannot make any definite assumptions about the existence of God. That's a little on what it means to be atheist versus agnostic. Now let's do a head-to-head comparison on the key differences. 1. An atheist does not believe in any God, whereas someone who is agnostic does not claim to know whether any God does or doesn't exist. 2. An atheist would often state that the lack of proof for God is enough proof that God does not exist, versus an agnostic who does not determine the existence or non-existence of God through proof, instead only states that we cannot know and therefore God can or cannot exist. 3. The two can be classified differently. Atheism is a lack of belief, agnosticism is a theory of knowledge that supports different belief systems. 4. The approach to each one also differs, where being an atheist is based on what a person does or doesn't believe, but being agnostic cares about what is possible to prove as a living person. 5.
I mean, God Almighty can come down and show himself to the atheist, and the atheist still won't believe. They'll be like, oh, this is a dream. Like, this is the difference, is you've already closed your mind off to a reality or possibility of something. How could you believe in science, and how can you believe in scientists and theory and all these different things if you've already closed yourself off to the concept of a specific route or a specific way of something happening if it hasn't been proved or not proven? That is just like the most ignorant thing ever, especially like if you're an atheist and you believe, oh, well, there's no God, 100% guaranteed there's no God, I close off this whole entire concept. But I believe in the Big Bang, and I believe in evolution, I believe we came from monkeys and all the, like, how are you so open to these theories that cannot be proven and aren't proven, right? So the same thing, God is a theory, right? To, oh, God is 100% not real, I'm closed off, that's it. It's kind of crazy to me that you have this concept or this mindset. It's kind of like a denial factor, right? It's kind of like, you know there's a chance of God being there, but you just want to shut it off completely in your head. It's like you're fighting something within yourself, you know? You don't fight anything else like that. You don't fight any other thing like that. We can talk about unicorns to an atheist, and he'd be like, yeah, you know, I can't prove that a unicorn does or doesn't exist, but you probably have to bring clear proof that one does exist, maybe a horn, a hair, or something, you know? And it's just like, they are so closed off to God, but they're so open to everything else. I find that pretty crazy.
Being atheist is often associated with strong convictions that will only change after proof from other views, whereas being agnostic is more about looking at all possibilities and what cannot be known. 6. Atheism claims that we as people are here now without a greater purpose, and after death, there is nothing. Agnosticism follows the same view as with the existence of God, but that it might be possible for life after death, though it's just as unlikely. 7. Because of these opposing views, atheists will often criticize agnostics for not taking a firm stand. Likewise, an agnostic might criticize an atheist for being too extreme in their view. 8. It must be said that an agnostic can be an atheist, but an atheist cannot be an agnostic. Since being atheist by definition means denying the possibility that a God can exist, but being agnostic, no God is a possibility. But we may also simply not know what's beyond our physical world. One of the other big differences between atheists and agnostics is we don't tend to recognize people for being agnostic, but we definitely do for being atheist. We took a look at a few of the most famous atheists and what they believed. We found many of the outspoken atheists are actors. Here's what a few had to say. Daniel Radcliffe, who's best known for playing in the Harry Potter films, said though he doesn't preach atheism, he is a militant atheist when religion starts impacting legislation. Morgan Freeman said that it all comes down to a matter of believing, especially if people who believe in God don't think the world is more than 6,000 years old. And Brad Pitt was quoted by MSN as saying, I'm 20% atheist and 80% agnostic. Another famous person where there seems to be some debate in whether he was a believer or not is Albert Einstein. Best known for being a pioneer in physics, he was born into a secular Jewish family. As an adult, he seemed to reject the idea of God, but then he also contradicted himself on a number of occasions. Here are two of Einstein's quotes. I want to know how God created this world. I'm not interested in this or that phenomenon in the spectrum of this and that element. I want to know his thoughts. The rest are details. But then he also said, I do not believe in immortality of the individual, and I consider ethics to be an exclusively human concern with no superhuman authority behind it. Atheist, agnostic, or a man of faith? We'll let you be the judge.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. Most people that go ahead and have these standpoints, they really drown in these scientific theories, right? Without theory that they can't prove with anyways. Their belief system, their basis of God not being real is wash. Like, without utilizing all of the theories, like theory of relativity and theory, you know, the theory of the Big Bang, the theory of evolution, and so many other theories that cannot be proven or have been proven, right? Their whole belief of God not being real is wish-wash, right? And I find this very interesting that they use things that are not believed or cannot be proven to try and say that God, which they don't believe or cannot be proven, is not real. I find that very interesting.
Atheist or being agnostic.
But if you use God, which is also a theory that is not proven, you can't say that the Big Bang never happened. You can't say that evolution never happened because things in our natural system lead to that being the way. Well, things in our natural system lead to God being the way. So why are you going ahead and taking this hard stance on this side? Like the guy's saying, it's an extremist view.
Seem to be closely related, but are so often misunderstood as the same. But in fact, they have clear differences, as we've seen. To understand the differences completely, it may sometimes be easier to speak directly to the individual to explore their views on God and the afterlife. Do you think we can ever prove the existence of a God? Let us know by commenting below. Also,
I think that is the whole entire point, more or less, right? You're instinctively built with these things, right? You're instinctively built to have this higher purpose or want this higher purpose or question everything around you where any other species, any other animal is not. This is just something that's built within you, right? So can you prove if God exists? Well, what is your purpose? First, you have to establish what is my purpose, right? From a religious aspect, your purpose is to worship God. This life is a test, more or less, to see if you will go ahead and worship your Creator through all of the signs around you, right? And use your intellect, use your knowledge, use everything that has been given to you as a tool to go ahead and make this happen. Now, if you don't believe that, then no, you're not going to be able to prove there's the existence of a God until you die and you go back to your Creator. Then when you resurrect on the day of judgment and you're being judged, then you will know there is a God and you'll be very, very upset and you won't be able to come back. But if you do believe that this is a test, because you feel like you're being tested at every waking point, at every waking moment, everywhere you go, everything that you do feels like a test, feels like you're being watched, feels like when you look at your hand, you're inside this body, that this body is a tool that you're utilizing, that you're using. When you look and you examine these things, and you take these as signs, and you go ahead and do your best to follow the guidelines and follow the instinctive nature of yourself, of the human being, to go ahead and worship God Almighty, and you realize what worshiping God Almighty does, how it guides you, how miracles end up happening in your life, how you're given things, how your prayers are being answered, and how so many other things are happening within your life and falling together, how you don't get depressed, how you don't get anxiety, how you don't get any of these things because you have connected yourself to the Creator of the heavens and the earth. Then you will say, there's a God. You'll be able to prove it to yourself. But the only way to prove there's a God is from within, right? You're not going to be able to prove God on a piece of paper. It's just not going to happen. Now, you can have critical discussions and logical discussions on is God real or isn't God real, and talk about, the basis of these things. But this all comes from your belief system. This all comes from submission, right? You have to submit to God to believe in God. That's just how it works. God is unseen, right? You can go ahead and ask people who do rituals, right? You can go ask people who do rituals and stand in those summoning circles and do sacrifices and do all these things. Do you believe in the unseen spirit world? Do you believe in ghosts? Do you believe in demons, right? They're going to tell you, yeah, demons are real. They come and I make deals with them and they do things for me, and I do black magic and I do all of these things, and they give me information and they do they do a bunch of things for me when I summon them, right? And then you can go ask someone else who has never touched black magic, who has never seen a summoning circle, who has no idea what demons are. And you ask them, are there invisible beings that go and come and do tasks for you and fly around the world and get information for you and make things float and make things do this or do that? They can be like, no, that's a bunch of fairy tale stories. So when something is happening within your life, when you see something for yourself, when you feel something from yourself that's spiritual, that is in the unseen world, this is a completely different stance. So until you get there, you're not going to believe in it. Until you submit yourself to God Almighty, until you test God Almighty for yourself, you're not going to believe. You're not going to truly believe. And that's something that, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, I've been blessed with. Even if you're born Muslim, even if you're born Christian or Jewish, and you've always been told there's a God, and you've always been told these things, until you truly have the intention to get down and submit your will to God Almighty and ask God Almighty to guide you, ask God Almighty to go ahead and protect you, ask God Almighty for specific things by name, by color, and He gives them to you, and He guides you, and you feel weight off of your chest, and your stress goes away, and your anxiety goes away, even though you've been trying for 10 years, going and seeing therapists, taking medications, trying to distract yourself. You got married, you had kids, you did all of these things. You finalized your career, and you're making money now, and you bought a house, and you did everything you thought was going to take away all your worries, and you're still worried, and you're still stressed, and you're still suicidal, and you're still confused, and you're still hurt, and you're still searching for a higher purpose. It's because you're missing God Almighty. That's 100% the case, and it's always the case. The poorest man or the richest man, when they have God, they seek nothing else. It's like everything is just there for them. They feel complete, and they've always felt complete no matter what happens. That doesn't mean, no, just believe in God and don't try, sit down on the ground and do nothing. No. When you believe in God Almighty, you ask Him to guide you. You ask Him to protect you through specific things. And you go ahead and you push and you try. And when you do those things and you try and you push, God Almighty will help you, right? And he might make something work out, or He might make something not work out in a specific way to guide you into a specific path. But it's always going to lead you at the better route than someone who thinks that they're their own God. That, they just make all their own decisions and there's no influence coming from anywhere else. That I'm in full control of everything. You're not. Unfortunately, the universe was created by something that has a set rule book, that has set boundaries to everything that's within it. Everything has boundaries. Nothing is unlimited within our universe. So to go ahead and think that you have this magical idea system, that there's no creators, nothing outside of this limited universe, what can create a limited thing? If my phone is limited, what created it? Something that's greater than this limited thing. How can you create something that you're less than? It doesn't even make sense. One cannot create three, but three can create one. And this is just how simple logic, simple mathematics, simple, rationality works. Anyways, thank you guys so much for coming in today. God bless every single one of you. The difference between an atheist and an agnostic. An atheist is hardcore belief that there is no God and no God at all. Sorry, there's nothing there. I'm going to die. I'm going to go to a black hole. An agnostic does not believe in God necessarily, but doesn't know if there is a God. He accepts that this is a theory that means that there could be a God, or there could be an afterlife, or there could be these things, but he doesn't play into it. He doesn't appease it. He kind of just lives his life and moves on. Where an atheist is just hardcore. There's nothing. There's no God. I'm finalized on this, decision. No matter what evidence, no matter what you bring me, this is it. There's no God. And it was a pretty cool video. It was pretty nice to go ahead and see the different comparisons, the animation. I always like the animated videos that give an animated style. And of course, I've given my own viewpoint and my own understanding from the Muslim perspective, from my own personal perspective. Not all Muslims agree with me. Not all Christians agree with me. Not all Jews agree with me. But many people do agree with me. So it doesn't matter who you are or what you are. It's very important to have these discussions. It's very important to have these analytical and educational and academic discussions with one another in the comments, through talking to each other, through videos, and just really, really, really interacting with all of the questions, all of the different things that we pick apart in our brain. Because God Almighty did indeed give us intellect. He did indeed give us a brain, and He gave it to us so we can use it. So thank you guys so much for coming in today. God bless every single one of you, and until next time, free Palestine.